reasonable expectation. But Perry Mason, he knew law, he knew forensics, he knew psychology, he knew sociology, social work. He used all of this knowledge that he had to crack a case. Well, nothing like that happens in the real world today, and nothing like that happens on television anymore. What we have here in all these law shows is actually a learning team. We have people of different ages, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different areas of expertise who work together to solve a case. And their learning is embedded in the work that they're doing on a constant basis. They're constantly learning from each other, mentoring, coaching each other, sharing knowledge, growing and developing together. So a learning team is much more powerful than a standalone individual, and it is a learning team. They are learning every time they solve a case. It's embedded into their work. Here's another example. Dr. Kildare. Here's a standalone hero who's a GP. He's a general practitioner, but he knows radiology. He does the x-rays. He would do the blood work, do a little surgery on the side. He could do everything, okay? He could do everything. Well, that's just not the world, okay? The world is this. The world is learning teams, collaboration, constantly learning and improving performance. During those same 50 years, we went from the standalone teacher of the 50s to the standalone teacher of the 21st century. And this really is this is a real teacher. And now this is, I want to slow down because this is a good teacher. I call this teacher Mrs. Jones. We found out who this teacher was. This ad was used in an ad campaign. It was used actually by Teach for America in 2003 and 2004 as the iconic image of a teacher making a difference. This is the iconic image. This teacher was in a Seattle public school. We know it's a 21st century classroom because the computers are in the back there. Nobody's using them. And they're not even turned on. Okay? And if they did, the firewall would stop them from getting to anything. But I want to stop for a second because this is Mrs. Jones. This is the teacher that all summer long parents go and fight with the principal because they want their children to get Mrs. Jones. This is a really good teacher. Okay. So these kids were lucky, but the problem is that kids down the hall did not get Mrs. Jones. They're with a teacher who's struggling, and across town there's a school where most of the teachers are struggling. And as good as Mrs. Jones is, there's no way for those other teachers to learn from her because they're all teaching alone. As good as she is, there's no way for her to get better, to learn from other more accomplished teachers in her school or her district, because again, she's teaching alone. Where's her team? Where's her collaborative team? Teaching is the last profession in the world where we still expect professionals to do an extremely complex, demanding job, largely alone, with their own skills and ability. That's just not a reasonable expectation. We have to stop asking teachers to do this. And by the way, it's 2009. This picture was taken in 2001, and Mrs. Jones is gone. She's left the profession, and everything she knew, she took with her, because there was no way for her to leave a legacy for her colleagues. So we need to move from this 20th century human capital management that we can kind of move teachers around like pieces in a chessboard, that they're going to kind of go through a career in a predictable way, and move to a 21st century workforce development model. There's three ways we can move. First is the traditional way, which is what we've been doing, is to fix what we've got. We develop better teachers, we manage them more effectively, we create better school and after-school programs. We make everything we have as good as we can. And we integrate technology into the schools is what we've been doing. We've been taking technology and integrating it into the old model of schooling. What we need to be doing is using technology to integrate schools into an open learning economy. It needs to be going the other way. Not to use technology as a big pipe to just stream stuff into the classroom, but to use the technology to integrate schools, classrooms, teachers, and students into the open learning economy. So how do we get from traditional to what will be transformational? We need a transitional hybrid process, just like a hybrid car. We know that we're not going to rely on carbon-based fuel forever, but we're not at the point where we can create a new technology. So what we've got right now is hybrids. They're combinations of the old way and the new way, basically. We need to start building and organizing hybrid learning spaces that use some of the best of the old strategies that we have while we start to use new strategies. What we're doing is to integrate the technology into schools to connect them to the larger learning environment, and we're building teams in schools instead of supporting individual teachers. We're saying we need to move away from individual preparation, individual professional development, to organization development, to team building in schools, so that we're preparing and educating this workforce in a collaborative environment, which creates the platform then for us to move to a transformational environment in which learning teams will develop what we call, NICTAF calls, learning studios. A studio is like an architecture studio, a dance studio, an art studio. It's a learning space where people come together to work to collaboratively improve their learning. We're doing this now with NASA. We've created NASA Learning Studios in Howard County, Maryland, and Queen Anne's County, Maryland. They're project-based learning spaces that have a core of accomplished teachers at their heart, veteran and novice teachers in earth science, and they deploy NASA Earth scientists in the learning teams, in the project-based learning teams. So you have about 5 teachers in a high school, and you have about 15 folks from NASA who are working over the course of an 8-week module on an earth science project in ocean science or in plate tectonics in those 2 sites right now. The teachers set the learning agenda. They define the learning challenge that they're struggling with, their students are not meeting, and then we recruit the content expertise, project team expertise, if you will, from NASA to do that. We're starting the same model in Albuquerque and Rio Rancho with Intel and Sandia Laboratory, and we're talking with New York City about doing this with their 21st Century Schools initiative. Learning studios are that disruptive space. They create a space that's outside of the school environment where change can happen. Learning studios, unlike some of the charter schools, which I support, by the way, charter schools. Charter school movement had the opportunity to be a disruptive environment, but mostly what they created was more schools that look a lot like schools, okay? And they were created by educators who said, okay, we're going to create something, we'll create what we know, we create school, okay? What we're trying to do in learning studios is bring together strong educators with a cadre of other people who are not in education, who know about teaming, who know about collaboration, who know about discovery learning, inquiry-based learning. NASA, after all, is the ultimate project-based learning organization. Their project is, how do we put something on Mars, okay? They know about this, and so we're creating a space and we're creating an organization of people that becomes a disruptive space outside of the existing system of organizations that we have. We think that, to conclude, we think that really to remake American education, we need an education workforce that can create a network of 21st century learning organizations. So what we're talking about here is not just preparing a better teacher. We're talking about schools of education getting out of the preparation business, actually, and into the workforce development business in partnership with school districts. So that's where I hope that we'll wind up in a few days. Thank you.